One of the least used letters in the English alphabet, now a symbol of a fringe conspiracy theory. Its origins lie in the dark web, but it's crept to mainstream platforms. Once there, it was embraced mainly by people on the far right of the political spectrum and picked up by Republican politicians, some who now sit in the halls of Congress. You likely know QAnon's history, but within the shadows of the conspiracy is real pain to those who believe and to those who witness.
My life as I know it has been burnt to the ground.
Families torn apart.
The moment I really decided to cut ties, and that was the insurrection.
And we examine why it's easier to fall into than you might think.
These QAnon type things provide a very easy and appealing answer to a lot of really complicated things.
Shedding truth and light into the dark corners of conspiracy.
You're watching Local 5 News.
Tonight, we are taking a deep look at conspiracy theories, misinformation, disinformation. We know they can all undermine our political process, but what we are also learning is they can ruin personal relationships, as told through the stories of two women whose names we have changed, who are living in fear.
Hello?
Hi there, this is Eva.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, before we get started, I just want to make sure really want to make sure, like, my identity doesn't get out, whatever you decide to do with this information.
The fear Caroline lives with as the wife of a QAnon follower is enough to make the mother hide her identity.
I'm trying to protect my kids as much as possible.
It's the same protection 21-year-old May is seeking.
They have a strong platform and keep growing.
From the group her mother has succumbed to.
She tried to call me 4 times today, and I didn't answer because I just didn't want to hear any of it.
Q has destroyed my life. My life as I know it has been burnt to the ground.
QAnon, the common thread tying these two Midwestern women who've never met together. More specifically, what Caroline and May have in common are loved ones whose quest for answers to some of life's complications took a wrong turn. And when bad actors online fed them a series of false information, it cost these two women their relationships and their sense of personal safety.
I live with someone who hates me, who I live in fear of, all because of them. The Qs and the people who allow the Qs to breed.
So what is QAnon and why do its followers, known as Qs, believe it? In short, QAnon is a conspiracy theory that originated on the anonymous website called 4chan and came into the mainstream media in 2018. But we'll get more into its origin later. For now, we'll focus on what its followers believe, which at the surface can sound genuine. They position themselves as wanting to save the children from sex trafficking. But the explanation they provide as to why sex trafficking exists is false and harmful, detracting from the real problem. Take a listen to what May's mom told her.
She had said, well, there are these high-level people in the government, and they go by the name Q. And Q it's not one person, it's a group of people who are insiders. They have all these information about all the child sex trafficking rings.
The theory itself is political, alleging celebrities and high-ranking Democrats worship Satan, run a sex trafficking ring, and plot against Donald Trump.
She would tell me, you would not believe all the celebrities on this list that are pedophiles. And she would say this out in public too, to like random people.
The followers believe Donald Trump is on a mission to put an end to the alleged sex trafficking ring and will soon do it in a public way. Q telling followers to watch and see it play out. The global elite will be taken down soon.
They've been collecting all the gold, not only for physical control, but also for something unimaginable. Normies won't understand. You're watching a scripted movie.
A phrase often echoed by followers on Facebook.
Q says today is going to be a movie. Some big plan happens today. Q is a psyop on National Popcorn Day.
For some, it becomes an obsession, glued to their computers, phones.
Stays up in bed on his phone, like during the day when he's at work. Constant.
Crystallizing the conspiracy.
He truly believes that any other Democrat or anyone who challenges his belief set is a pedophile.
transcending political division.
I've become the enemy, so I have to be very careful.
Caroline learned it's no longer safe to speak up.
I mean, at first I was furious because it makes no sense. So I would fight back pretty fiery.
But the more she fought back, the more he'd send her Q's propaganda, links, videos.
This is our duty to God and country. The true warriors for freedom never give up the fight.
May's mom in deep, too, sending invites to apps that would let this false information live.
I remember her sending me an invite to Parler.
A flurry of misinformation, Q coercing followers to believe that radical things would happen on certain dates, like COVID ending on Election Day or Biden getting arrested before he takes office, neither of which happened. But that doesn't stop Q from stringing people along and the followers hanging on, which is frustrating to their families.
I confronted her and said, what the hell are you doing? You have a daughter at home who needs you. You have a family to take care of, and you're over here living in a dreamland of conspiracies.
For months, May's mom shut her down. In December, buying a one-way ticket to Utah to go to a doomsday shelter.
She bought a one-way ticket there, and she had said to me on like Christmas, I'm just gonna go, I'm not gonna come back, you know, haha.
The same time, Caroline remaining the subject of her husband's rage for not buying in.
It's the anger that he's focused on me for not believing it. So I decided to just keep my head down and try to avoid his wrath.
Had you ever, up until this point in your marriage, felt scared of him in that way?
No. That's why it's so hard. Reconciling what my life's become.
Then, when they didn't think it could get any worse, the insurrection. Many spearheading the riots, doing it in the name of Q. Doug Jensen from Des Moines wearing a QAnon t-shirt in the Capitol, seen on a video taken by a reporter chasing a police officer up the stairs. May was shocked.
I remember texting her like, what the hell is going on? And she didn't respond all day. She didn't respond to a single thing I sent her, even days afterwards.
Caroline's husband acted unusual too.
He's been more subdued ever since the 6th. I don't know what that means.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me.
January 20th came and went. Biden was inaugurated, but Q had told followers Biden was going to be arrested on live TV at his inauguration, and Trump would reveal himself as the president and declare martial law. When that didn't happen, many broke apart from the conspiracy. But those who remain are intense.
Only those of spiritual commitment and determination are qualified for the next phase of this operation, which is to expose...
Moving the goalposts once more, this time to March, the remaining Q followers now think Trump will reveal himself on that date.
And defend our civil rights against the deranged.
Among the followers who stayed, May's mom, Caroline's husband. Their loved ones still glued to the internet. But now Caroline and May are turning there too. A group on the website Reddit called QAnon Casualties, where tens of thousands of members share similar pain.
I felt so much relief knowing that other people were struggling with the same thing that I was, because mentally it's really hard to wrap your head around when your parent, who you think is the smartest person in the world as a kid, is not being, the person you want to look up to.
Hanging on to little hope.
What is your hope for your marriage?
I don't have any right now. I'm just trying to survive. Like, my future is empty, whatever it may be. Neither side is appealing. Single mom, divorced, or in this marriage. My life as I know it has been burnt to the ground.
Both women hope sharing their pain might help someone else.
I want people to be aware of the pain and absolute trauma and torment it causes. And if there are people out there who this might prompt them to do something about it, that's what I'm hoping to accomplish.
Wow, powerful stories, and even my heart just breaks for these women. So, what's next for Caroline and May?
It is heartbreaking. It was very emotional interviewing them. Both women say they're in intense therapy to deal with this stress that this brings to their lives. Caroline says she's really just trying to take things one day at a time, especially because she still lives with her husband, who she says is absent from her kids now. She does plan on filing for divorce. May, who doesn't live with her mom, she's 21, She wrote her mom a letter saying, until you're able to come back to reality, you're not welcome in my life. She doesn't know if she plans on sending that, but she said that and the support group on Reddit really helped her, just writing it and talking it all out. Stephanie?
Sure. How about warning signs? Anything that the rest of us should really be watching out for?
That's such a good question, and it has a complicated answer. For example, May was wondering how this happened to her mom, who is college educated. She said otherwise, she's really smart. A psychologist tells me while certain people are more vulnerable, it boils down to having a grievance or major stress. And for a lot of people, it is not having their candidate win, also magnified by the pandemic.
Trying to understand why the world is so uncertain, right? Why there is so much sexual slavery and child trafficking and various other things. These QAnon type things, even though are completely nonsensical for proper examination, provide a very easy and appealing answer to a lot of really complicated things.
And what he just said there echoed by the research of another journalist for Vox, Romano, who researched QAnon extensively. She broke it up into 3 purposes, which I think are really helpful. 3 reasons people believe QAnon. 1, it serves as a framework to make sense of the problem or grievance they have in their life. 2, a distraction from the grievance by looking at all those links and videos. And 3, it's a community of like-minded people who share that same grievance, which right now, during political division, a lot of people do.
Certainly, I think a lot of us can relate in one way or another to what we're seeing and hearing. Eva, thank you very much. Mis and disinformation are not going unchallenged. There are groups working to fight back and to bring truth to what you read and watch, recognizing how harmful such information can be. One organization doing just that is First Draft. So joining us now is Claire Wardle, U.S. Director for First Draft. Claire, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thanks for having me.
Well, first, let's start with QAnon and really, how can it be best described?
It's difficult. It's basically a collection of different theories and beliefs. So somebody once described it like a buffet table where you can take from it what you want. But it's very much about this idea that there's a secret cabal of people who are controlling the country, that Trump is in charge still, that there are child sacrifices. I mean, it's really an awful conspiracy, but people are taking from it the bits that they want to believe.
And what has First Draft learned about how QAnon was born and now how it has since evolved?
So it actually emerged in 2017 on 8chan, as it was called then, and somebody called Q, anonymous, was dropping what's known as Q drops. And the thing we need to understand about QAnon is that it's a community. People feel part of something. And it's a little bit like a big game where these puzzles are, you get pieces of the puzzle and you put them together. So people are very participatory. They feel like they're part of something. So rather than say, how can people believe this nonsense? We have to say, there is a lot about QAnon that's actually appealing to people right now when they feel disconnected, they feel confused, they feel let down by institutions, and QAnon is filling that gap.
We know QAnon is very compelling to people who follow. So what happens if Q says something big is going to happen, but that something really never comes to fruition? Do followers, carry it out still, or do they kind of scale back? What happens then?
So we are seeing right now that some followers, believers, are seeing that this moment of truth, that they really believe that Trump was going to continue to a second term. You've seen some people say, well, hang on, but we're also seeing a number of people saying, no, actually, there's a new plan. Keep following and you will learn about the new plan. So unfortunately, even things that we might think, well, that'll be the end of QAnon, there's too much momentum now in this community that they can keep it going and keep people believing that the next thing is just around the corner.
Do you think they are continuously priming people?
Well, what we see with QAnon is that they are constantly trying to recruit. So last year, at the end of the last year, we saw kind of Save the Children rallies. And that was a way to say, well, QAnon is starting to get some bad press. Why don't we connect with those people who are worried about child abduction? Because that's part of the QAnon conspiracy. And let's work with those communities and try and bring them on board. So unfortunately, we do have to think about recruitment and to understand that if you have a family member who's starting to talk about these kind of issues, trying to figure figure out what they're looking at online and what they're believing, because it is a journey, and it would be really good to try and stop people before they go too far, because it's much harder to bring them back after that point.
And we have spoken to family members who have seen loved ones just become wrapped up in the QAnon conspiracy world. And these people would normally be described as very smart people. So what makes it seemingly so easy for smart people to, quote, fall for QAnon conspiracy?
Because we really have to not look at the specific claims, but understand that for many people, their lives have been completely turned upside down. Everybody's. My life is unrecognizable. I hardly see anybody. I, don't go to an office anymore. And so in those moments when people feel isolated and disconnected, they're seeking what's known as agency. They want to feel like they can do something. And right now they've had their agency taken away. We're all passively sitting at home, or we don't know what's next. We can't make plans. So if somebody comes along and says, I'll explain to you why this has happened to you, why you've lost your job, why you're being talked to by the media and by the government in these ways. It's very compelling. So it's not about how intelligent somebody is. It's because everybody feels out of control. We're all sort of in fight or flight mode. And unfortunately, when we're like this, our brains really struggle to kick in our critical functions. We're very susceptible right now, all of us, because we're frightened and scared and we don't know what the future looks like. So somebody giving you a roadmap for the future gives you that sense of like, oh, somebody's in charge, and that's why it's having such impact and why it's so damaging.
It's very, very scary right now, but I'm thrilled to know that there are people like you, Claire, who are fighting for the truth and educating people every day. We want to thank you in First Draft for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Conspiracy theories are nothing unique in today's society, but what makes movements like QAnon so unique is where the information is spread. Local 5's Sarah Beckman reports.
Federal unemployment benefits for millions of Americans set to run out this Saturday.
LA County seeing an average of 2 people dying of COVID every hour.
President Trump is considering increasingly desperate steps to overturn the will of the American people.
There goes more gas. There goes more gas. And there's a flashbang.
2020 was a year like no other. A new, unpredictable, deadly virus. People losing their jobs. A tumultuous election. And civil unrest. All those life-changing events, along with social isolation, creating the perfect storm for people to go online and search for what they thought were the answers.
They have mastered the use of social media through memes and messages packaged in such a way to appeal to people's not only grievances, like, for example, they lost their jobs or they're confused about what is happening out there with COVID, but also to appeal to people's interest.
That's Sharon Kinsat, a sociology assistant professor at Grinnell College. She's been studying how QAnon leaders use social media to recruit members and spread messages. The big platform? Facebook.
They published a study sometime in March last year, where they found out that 64% of those who joined extremist organizations like Proud Boys and those who purvey conspiracy theories, of course, QAnon is like one of them, were attracted based on the recommendations in their Facebook.
So how does that happen? Facebook uses specific methods to populate your news feed with posts that get a high click rate. Posts where people commented, liked it, shared it, or any other type of reaction.
So basically, tech companies have built systems that promote and escalate the spread of, the most shocking, appalling, for far-right hateful messages, rather than content that enable people to pause and reflect and analyze.
And it's on these social media sites that people connect, spreading more and more messages.
Like-minded groups, right? So there's this like echo chamber, and it's not like messages are just interpreted by people like they're robots. Of course, they have to use their also what we call like lived experience to make sense of what they are reading.
Kinsat says it's unlikely conspiracy theory groups like QAnon will fade away anytime soon.
They have an army of like influencers, far-right influencers, conspiracy theory influencers out there whose main tasks are to develop messages, design messages that appeal aesthetically and emotionally.
Sarah Beckman, Local 5 News, Weir, Iowa.
Eva, for people who do have a loved one who shares misinformation, I mean, we all know somebody who does. Is there something you can do to help guide them in the right direction?
Well, Stephanie, you're right. Many people have done it in the past, and in fact, acknowledging that can help a family member saying, you know, hey, I shared this one time. I found out it was fake. I felt really silly about it because, as we saw with May and Caroline, fighting back doesn't always work. But if the gentle approach doesn't work, it's recommended to just give some space. Stephanie?